Right now, we're seeing the SPY trickle higher as it tries to get to that all-time high. Will that happen? I really think that can happen in the near future, but we need to pay attention to right now because it is a time to be very cautious as those weekly charts are showing us. We could be seeing some big volatility over the next few months. Thanks for clicking on my video. Today, we're going to be doing some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVIDIA, but I first wanted to switch from the SPY chart here over to IWM to just show you guys something that I noticed today. Now, as you guys know, I do like my 2-hour charts when I'm really looking for reversals, right? I do like those 2-hour charts because these 2-hour divergences really do like to roll over those daily MACDs, okay? So what I noticed here on IWM, if you were a part of my Patreon throughout the day today, you actually were notified about this. So, you know, it pays to be a part of my Patreon because I do send that information out while it is happening, and then you don't have to wait till the market's over. But right now, I do want to look at the IWM because you can see that as we are going higher, we're creating some kind of triple divergence, which is something that I talked about actually on last Saturday. We were talking a little bit about the IWM, and we just noticed, hey, the IWM most likely will break out of this zone, which I actually think is a very bullish sign. It's a very bullish sign because then we can come back into this zone and get that trampoline effect. But overall, I just stated that up in this area, we could see, because we've seen such a strong move, some divergences form, and maybe we need to pull back before we head higher. So we really want to pay attention to this as of right now as we're seeing it form. We see that divergence on the MACD, on the RSI at the exact same time, and it's not necessarily making a move higher. Now, this isn't some kind of dramatic selling. We could curl back up, and the reason we could curl back up is because we're still in that positive territory, but I just wanted to point this out to you guys because a lot of the time these small caps can lead the market where it's going to go first. So we want to pay attention to IWM over the next few days. See if this 2-hour maybe even gets another push higher and gets another point of reference in this divergence, and then gets really, really close to that center line, starting some kind of negative trend. Back over to the SPY, this is really what I'm talking about. I do believe we have a chance to go higher. If you've been part of this channel, yes, I do see those reversal signals, but it doesn't mean we have to go down right now. It just means we need to be cautious in this area because we could see some kind of bigger pullback, which could be some kind of bigger crash or something like that. So we want to pay attention at this point. Really, I see this playing out in a couple ways. I actually think the bullish scenario here, I do believe we are going to see some kind of pullback, right? And I really like this zone in here. This zone, we use these zones to trampoline higher. And as you can see, if we did actually come back into that zone, it's got a lot of good buyers in here. So we could see some buyers jump in at that point, and maybe we get that extended bullishness into next year. And maybe we do actually see this push all the way up into March with another pullback, and we see some divergences up here. The thing I want to pay attention to is I'm in a big channel. So if we talk about the bearish scenario here, that would be some kind of ABC pattern. That would be some kind of further breakdown, meaning that we actually come to lower levels, we bounce up, we retest an area that we broke through, that we've tested a few times back over here, and then we actually head down one more time and touch the bottom of this channel. And this is where we'd really want to be paying attention. Are we seeing basing out? Are we seeing anything like that? And we're going to talk about this on Saturday's video. So on Saturday's video, I'm going to talk about the actual fundamental side, what things could be happening around this time frame, and if we do get up into this area, what could be happening around this time frame. So join back on Saturday because we're going to be going over if these patterns do start to form in front of us, if one of these directions starts to set up, what could be happening, and hint, it might be around earnings. We're going to go into a 2-hour, and you'll notice we're coming into the bottom side of our wedge that we've been in for quite some time. And I really think we do have one more push left in us. Now, we only do have one more day in the year, and we do like to close within this zone 68% of the time. So that could happen next week, but I'm really pushing towards some kind of bounce in this area in order to keep us within this wedge. It would be very interesting to pop down. And if we are going to drop from here, so I do believe the bullish side would be we come up into the top side of our channel. And I think the overall bearish side would be we see some kind of drop down to gain some more buyers in order to make that happen. I really do see an all-time high coming in the very near future. And I think that narrative is really what's going to bait people in. And then they kind of pull the rug on you. If we did get that push up, what this would allow to do is allow this 2-hour to curl back up. And if that curled back up, we would actually have kind of what the IWM looks like. I just showed you the IWM at the beginning of this video, and you notice that it kind of looks the same. We have this flatness of the MACD here. We drop down, but the IWM actually, you know, it looked a little bit more clean. So we actually popped up a little bit here, and then we're not necessarily flat here, right? We're actually popping up like this, and we're seeing some more positivity. not necessarily trickling up at this point. We're actually seeing some good basing out, and move, and then we're getting divergences because of that. So I really think that the SPY does have a chance to curl up one more time on this 2 hour, and maybe that will be the time where that triple divergence does actually set up on the MACD. And you'll notice if we look at the RSI, that would set up at the same time. So I really want to pay attention to this over the next actually 24 hours, see if this actually comes to fruition. As we move on into the Qs, we're going to pay attention to this same thing as well. Now the Qs on the daily for tomorrow, if we do see that bullishness, I think we could see some pretty decent bullishness, right? We are kind of reconnecting with this 9-day, and if we're able to ride that up a little bit, we actually could see that weekly expected move tested, break out of this this big wedge that we're in for the Qs, and I believe that this will be very important. And we may even get excited and go a little bit higher. So I have this little this other wedge marked off right here. And you can notice that we could actually extend higher, maybe if we get some really big bullishness and see a big move. And I'll really be paying attention to outside of this weekly range if we do start to fade throughout the day and land back into this zone like we'd like to do 68% of the time. This is what the options have priced in for the week. Right now we're within it. So if we do get outside of it early on tomorrow, that's something to pay attention to and really look if that is going to fade by the end of the day. It could be very telling of what is to come next week. 2 hour does look a little bit different than the SPY, right? We're not necessarily getting a triple divergence. We're just looking for a single divergence at this point. So if this, as of right now, is rejecting, you have a little bit more room in this wedge that we're in. So we need to pay attention to that. And we do have a little bit more room. So if we want to continue to consolidate and then start to head higher, that would make some sense going into next week. So we just want to pay attention to that. But maybe if we do come out of this, we'd start to break that wedge on the SPY. We don't want those algorithms to kick in early and get some big selling coming in. So I really think that this has the potential to curl up first and then start to break down. What you'll notice on the MACD, that will bring us very close to that center line, which means that we could start a negative trend as soon as next week. Apple, I'm just going to give you guys the bullish and bearish scenarios for Apple. And I really think the bullish scenario, if we're going to see more positivity out of Apple, we're going to extend into that all-time high. I really, on the 2 hour here, I would like to see this, make this move. So the bullish side, I think we could, form some kind of left head, and then we're going to go collect some liquidity up in here and go get some kind of pop, right, in Apple. And the bearish side, my apologies, the bearish side of this would actually be we're seeing it form right now, which if you see it on your screen, you can see this level right in here. That seems pretty important, right? We actually based out from that area and started to head higher. Apple got that bad news about the watches, and then now we're coming into this area here, which we like to use to spring higher. So we could go higher from this, but the bearish scenario is we might be setting up some kind of left head, and then we actually pop up to this level, make people think that we're actually going to go even higher, and then we actually see that drop. So what we can pay attention to here is the positive territory and the negative territory right down in here for the 2 hour. See if this is able to remain in that positive territory throughout the whole day tomorrow. If we actually do pop higher into positive territory and then you see that curl back down, it's a good chance that we are going to take out this low and start to head lower because we are in that negative territory, meaning we may be in that negative trend. Amazon, Apple, all these stocks, they do have some room to go up for tomorrow. So we want to pay attention to this. We're holding at those moving averages, and maybe Amazon does join in with Apple to push the SPY higher to that all-time high. If this wants to go higher, the overall place that I'm going to be paying attention to is my trend, okay? So I do have a trend lined up. It's pretty much a channel at this point, what we've been in for quite some time. And I just want to pay attention to that. And I'll show you guys that zoomed out on Saturday. That way you can see it. But pretty much we need to be paying attention to this area up in here towards that 159. Okay, so towards 159, if you're part of my Patreon, you can look at those weekly expected moves. We can really pay attention to that at this point because this is consolidation. We've met back up with the 20 on the 2 hour, and we could see an extended move because of that, and maybe that pushes the SPY if some other stocks join in to an all-time high tomorrow. Now, what that would do on the MACD is if this is able to curl up pretty dramatically over the next couple of trading days, we could see that divergence here on Amazon as well. So it's just a point to be, you have a little bit of upside left, I think, but you have more potential for some further downside. So we really want to pay attention and be cautious over the next few days, but it looks like we could get that all-time high pretty soon. Tesla, for now, I'm going to give us this thumbs up. So give yourself a thumbs up, give yourself a pat on the back if you were subscribed and you enjoyed this information, just because we said that this most likely will try to break out of that big triangle we've been in for quite some time. Tesla's been in this big triangle for a long time right now. You got a slight move out of it. And what we were saying was look for this to fade, because this could be some kind of fake out. Now we can get multiple fake outs. So if we do get bullishness into tomorrow, we could see this make another move higher and then see that fade as well into next week. So I really want to pay attention to this, but we notice that it's coming down from breaking out of there. It actually is breaking down pretty dramatically at this point. Nothing too crazy for Tesla. I mean, 3% is pretty crazy for regular stocks, but Tesla does move pretty volatile, so we want to pay attention to it. It hasn't lost a 50 on the 2 hour, so I'm not too worried about it. Even if it wanted to keep basing out, I'd really pay attention to this level about 246, just because that lines up with this part right here that we actually came out of. We used it as support before. When we broke out of it, we went higher, so it could be an area to consolidate, and maybe we actually set up some kind of mini head and shoulders to head lower. So I really want to pay attention to this as of tomorrow, but it looks like we got our first fake out in Tesla, and it seems like we may even get another one tomorrow. The other thing on Tesla I just wanted to point out on the MACD is you do have that 2 hour divergence. You have a 2 hour divergence that's pretty low, meaning it is very close to that center line. So if it does want to keep on selling and it sells into the bottom of this wedge, then we could see some more volatility come in. We could see that get into a negative trend. We could start to make that low and another low. That's really what happens when we get into this negative territory. The RSI is below the center line at this point, so the momentum looks like it is slightly shifting down. So it's just something to really pay attention to going into tomorrow. NVIDIA, I still think NVIDIA does have a chance to make a slightly higher high than this one. I really think it does. I think we could see this participate, getting some ground up in here, and then maybe creating some kind of divergence. We just saw that divergence on Tesla, and maybe something like that does happen with NVIDIA going on into next week. So I want to pay attention to NVIDIA, and the point that I'm really paying attention to is this 507. I think 507 will be very important. I would really pay attention if we get above 507, if we're able to come back down by the end of the day. So if we do see some kind of big buying early on in the day tomorrow, look for that to fade pretty quickly. Now this is a 2 hour, so this could take some more time to come to fruition. So we really want to pay attention to if it's able to come up into this area, set up some kind of divergence for us, which would show on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. And you guys know that on the 2 hour charts that I do follow, I like my 2 hour divergence because a lot of 2 hour divergences kind of lead the daily chart, the daily MACD, to roll over and go cross to the downside. Yields did buy back up, and I said we do have the chance for more bullishness. If we do get some kind of pullback, it'll most likely be because of these yields popping, right? We have too many rate cuts, banked into the system. I think it's like 175 basis points still. So we want to pay attention to this. The Fed has said 75 basis points, so we could see this as some kind of pullback at this point. So I really want to pay attention to this. I'm still leaning into that more bullish side of the SPY that I was showing you, that bullish scenario where we do pull back and then actually head higher to a newer, higher all-time high. So I want to pay attention to this because we will most likely see these yields start to pop once we get that FOMC minutes next week. But I wanted to show you TLT because I wanted to pay attention to where it came to. And you'll notice that it came up to about, $100.50. So I wanted to pay attention to this area, and I was paying very close attention today and yesterday because the weekly expected move is right here. That is the weekly expected move. And right when we get outside of it, we see us start to pull down. So if TLT wants to end up in that range for the week that we land in 68% of the time, it'll want to stay where it's at and kind of end in this zone right here. So it's something to pay attention to, but these yields, or the TLT does like to hesitate a little bit before we actually get the information that is coming out. So we do see that hesitation before we get that FOMC minutes. And we've seen this a couple times, right? We were hesitating here and we saw that difference between TLT and the SPY at this point. And you just notice we were seeing that hesitation before they get the news. So TLT may just be waiting to get some news before it really wants to make a move. You have a gap below it and things like that that is within the range for the week. So we can really pay attention to this. But with these yields and TLT, you just really want to be paying attention to what the Fed says next week. And if they change their narrative of the 75 basis points, that's really what is going to affect TLT in the near future. The dollar, I was really paying attention to this today. I was notifying you that I was going to tell you something bad's coming if we do start to break below these levels. That is us getting way too bullish, way too fast. So we really wanted to pay attention to this, and we started to see that buy back up today. So we're seeing a move in the dollar as of today. Now that can break down with some bullishness tomorrow, but I really just want to pay attention to this flatness in the MACD. The MACD looks pretty flat at this point. The RSI is flat at the same time. So really the reason I'm leaning towards that pullback and even seeing a higher all-time high into 2024 sometime past January is mainly because these are flat divergences. If they were more steep, getting us closer to our center lines to get really into positive territory, I would be more confident in saying that there is some kind of reversal in trend coming, but it doesn't mean we can't turn the warning signs off. When we look at those weekly charts, we have to pay attention to those divergences because those are the divergences that we saw at the last all-time high. We all know how that played out. So it's just a time to be very cautious, but this move in the dollar is kind of giving me a little more encouragement towards this being some kind of pullback, and then we actually head higher in 2024, and maybe we even delay this all the way until fall or something like that. So I want to pay attention to this. I'm going to be updating you about this every single day. So it's just something to pay attention to, and the dollar is making that move back up. So we could see that volatility come back in pretty quick. Speaking of volatility, it is at this point hesitating right around that 1212. And we've been paying attention to 1212 because in the past we've seen big spikes from this area. So what happens? We sit at 1212. We don't hang out there for long. I've said that a few times. We were only there for a few days, and then look at that. We get a little spike in volatility. Now, I do believe we have a bigger spike in volatility coming. So if this is able to pop up and get this daily into positive territory, we're going to see some kind of sell-off. Now, this is where I just wanted to remind you about the weekly, and this is why we're being cautious at this point. We have those weekly divergences on the stocks in the other direction, but you can see volatility overall is very close to getting into a weekly positive trend. So if this is able to curl up and we're not going to get some kind of quick pullback, then we could see volatility come back in and see a dramatic spike like this one, and we might even go higher than that one because we will be going well within positive territory. So the main takeaway for this video is it is still a time to be very cautious in this market. And I believe that we are at least going to see some kind of pullback, if not some kind of trend reversal, giving us a bigger drop in the markets. We want to pay attention at this point. It is a good time to be a little bit more careful with your money, kind of put the brakes on and really be in a neutral stance. That way you can move with the market and move with price. So we could see prices heading a little bit lower. Is that going to be a pullback, or is that going to be some kind of trend reversal? We'll talk about that when that happens, but it looks like a pullback is coming very soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, doing all that stuff. I am going to be making those new monthly ranges for January as we are going into the last trading day of December. But as of right now, I really just hope you guys have all the luck in the world trading tomorrow, and I hope you have a good night.